Ever since episode 1 of season 8, I've been wondering, how will the final episodes of A Game of Thrones play out? There's no doubt that they're going to be explosive, but what is Bran Stark really up to? Well, I believe that House Stark made a secret pact in the Godswood in episode 4 of season 8 to win the Iron Throne. And in this video, I'm going to explain why I believe this to be the case, detailing the important clues to help fill in the blanks for what will be an epic conclusion to the series. Which is right? Knowledge is power, or power is power? This is the ultimate debate that will help us solve the endgame over the final 2 episodes. However, only one of these people is still left alive in the show, Cersei, who currently sits the Iron Throne. Now, of course, Littlefinger met his end in Winterfell in the season 7 finale, when we found out that Arya, Sansa, and Bran worked together to illuminate Peter Baelish's treason of House Stark in the open. It's important that we remember this scenario because it's the blueprint that House Stark is using again in season 8 right in front of our eyes. And Bran Stark, the three-eyed raven, whom people seem to be complaining about is doing nothing this season, is actually playing the Game of Thrones at a much higher and deeper level than we realize. We know this to be true because Bran Stark was a huge part of this plan because he was not only able to give crucial information to Sansa and Arya, which ultimately ended up with Littlefinger's execution. But to go back to the first question, who's correct? If it's Littlefinger, then we have to look to the person who has the most knowledge of anyone in the show, and he just happens to be a member of House Stark. In episode 1 of season 8, Sansa and Tyrion are having a conversation about their journeys, and Tyrion says basically anyone that has crossed Sansa has ended up dead. They chat about Cersei, and Sansa scolds him for trusting her, and she says, "I used to think you were the most clever man in the 7 kingdoms." Of course, Sansa walks away after this, and we see Bran staring at Tyrion. What's even more interesting though, is that Bran was listening to this whole conversation. How? With his raven behind this window. Now, let's jump to episode 2 with the conversation between Jaime Lannister and Bran, where Jaime approaches Bran and says, "I'm sorry for what I did to you. That wasn't right." Now, of course, Bran calls him out on that and says this very important line. "You weren't sorry then, you were protecting your family." This part is really important because we see a similar conversation happen in the Godswood with Arya, Sansa, and Jon. But Jaime asks why Bran didn't tell anyone, and Bran said, "You won't be able to help us in this fight if I let them murder you first." Now, this implies that Jaime has a role to play in the endgame, and he mostly played a big role in defending Winterfell from the army of the dead. But what did Bran actually mean? We have to remember what Bran saw in his vision after the Hold the Door event, after the Night King killed the previous three-eyed raven. Bran saw the future destruction of the Sept of Baelor, which was a crime Jaime's sister committed. But also, Bran saw Jaime kill the Mad King and sit on the Iron Throne in the past. Perhaps this implies that Jaime might have a role to play if a repeat scenario were to arise with Cersei becoming the Mad Queen. Now, in episode 3, we see Tyrion approach Bran and ask him about his journey, and Bran replies, "It's been a long one." But Tyrion suggests they chat since they have time to spare until the army of the dead arrives to Winterfell. We never see what's said in this conversation, and we focus on what Tyrion is saying to Bran about Bran's journey. But wouldn't it make sense that Tyrion would share information to Bran about his journey as well? It would be interesting if Bran had planted a seed in Tyrion's mind about something important, or told him a very important piece of information that if it got into the wrong hands would hurt House Stark. Now, in the last episode, we have a scene where Arya stops Jon from leaving after they're making battle plans to head south, and Jon, Arya, and Sansa have a conversation in the Godswood. This is actually the most important conversation of the series today because Sansa and Arya find out about Jon's true lineage, that his real name is Aegon Targaryen. Now, of course, he's reluctant because he's worried of how they might perceive him after he gives them this information, and because the person he respected more than anyone else died taking this secret to the grave. This is really important because Dany begged him to not share this information with anyone else because she felt threatened by his claim to the Iron Throne. Now, of course, Jon continually asserts that she's his queen, but the really important part of all of this is the last time that Bran gave Sansa and Arya this kind of information, they formulated a plan that ultimately led to the downfall and execution of Peter Baelish. But we have to wonder what was said in this conversation, and did House Stark make a secret pact and master plan to win the Iron Throne to finally break the wheel? In my opinion, they definitely made a plan. It's really interesting how episode 4 is titled The Last of the Starks because we get this sense that the pack is divided and they're all becoming lone wolves. What if Arya, who is headed to King's Landing with the Hound, Jon, who didn't leave with Daenerys and didn't ride Rhaegal, and Sansa, who said to Jaime that she wished she could see the execution of Cersei in person, are actually working together like we saw in Season 7? The reason I believe this to be the case is because Sansa, who questions Tyrion's loyalties in episode 1, gave information to Tyrion about who Jon really is. She says, "What if there's someone better?" Is Sansa really that stupid? I don't think so, everyone. After going everything she's gone through in her whole journey to let out a secret that her father Ned ultimately took to the grave, she's just dropping that because she's stupid? Absolutely not. She gave Tyrion Lannister this information willingly. Now, later on in episode 4, we hear Tyrion and Varys talk about Jon's lineage, where Varys tells Tyrion he believes that the Lords of Westeros would be more than likely supportive of Jon. Now, Varys asks Tyrion how many people know the secret that are alive, and he says 8, including us, which means Varys and Tyrion know the secret, Daenerys knows the secret, and Jon Snow, Sansa, Arya, Bran, and Sam will entirely know as well. Out of these people, Varys will probably most definitely die by betraying Daenerys, which leaves people that are basically loyal to Jon other than Daenerys and Tyrion. I believe the Bran we see now is a lot like Doctor Strange in Avengers Infinity War. He saw the different outcomes of what may happen, which makes it so interesting and smart to put the outcomes on Jon's decision to tell them. And Bran has been managing these situations ever so carefully, dating back to giving Arya the cat's paw dagger last season. We're just now starting to find out, with only 2 episodes left, that perhaps the Starks will make a power play for the Iron Throne. Now, the simplest answer is probably right, as we have often seen from the show, but there's a few different outcomes that I think we could see play out over the next 2 episodes, and here's my personal favorite. I believe that we are going to see a repeat scenario of the Hour of the Wolf in King's Landing, with Jon Snow pulling a Cregan Stark. It's interesting that the last book of the series was called A Time for Wolves before George R. R. Martin changed it to A Dream of Spring. But could we see this happen in the show over the final 2 episodes? The Hour of the Wolf refers to 6 days in 131 AC when Cregan Stark, the Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North, governed in King's Landing at the end of the Dance of Dragons. It is named the Hour of the Wolf, which is believed to be the blackest part of nighttime. Now, Cregan brought justice even to those who thought they were in the clear, and Cregan was the embodiment of iron. Perhaps since Jon is both ice and fire, he will have to be as well. And I wonder, will he have to do a few executions of his own that he really doesn't want to, but honor demands it? Varys looks like he might be trying to persuade Jon to go against Dany, which would be starting another Dance of Dragons, so Varys is toast. Tyrion could have made a secret deal with Cersei and give her information, so that's not good. And perhaps even Daenerys, if she were to kill innocents in King's Landing and start to act rashly like her father, I could see Jon ending her as well. Now, out of all these people, I think that Varys is a sure bet to betray Daenerys. I think we can count on that. And we could see Tyrion side with his family when Daenerys tries to kill Cersei, whom Tyrion believes is pregnant. So what Daenerys said in episode 4 with Root and Stem, we could be seeing the end of the Lannister line. Now, Cregan ultimately could have taken over and took the Iron Throne, but he left to go back north and got married and said see ya to King's Landing. I think we could see Jon do the same thing. I don't see him staying in King's Landing at all, and I could see him return to the True North or Winterfell at the end of the series. We could see a tragic end for Jon in the end, but perhaps the North and House Stark will finally be free from the shackles of the South, because you either win or you die in the Game of Thrones, like Cersei said. I actually love the idea of the Starks playing the Game of Thrones as a pact with everything that they've learned, with Jon being a leader, and Sansa as a political player, with Arya and all of her skills, and Bran with all of his knowledge. And Ned's words are super important. We heard it after they killed Littlefinger. They said they missed Ned, and Ned said the lone wolf dies, but the pack survives. But what do you think? Does House Stark have a secret plan to win the Iron Throne? Will Cersei's words come back to bite her like ashes in her mouth? And does Jon and Dany's love end tragically or bring them together? Let me know your thoughts, your theories, and tinfoil in the comment section. And if you want to see more Game of Thrones videos, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the future videos on the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Hype and love.